On-Tap Plumbing and Gas covers all Perth areas from Mandurah to Two Rocks and has a team of plumbing, drainage and hot water experts. They have an amazing reputation for their excellent service and quality workmanship on time, every time, and it is easy to see why they are a favourite to many Perth property managers. Whether you just need some friendly advice or an obligation-free quote, look no further than On-Tap Plumbing and Gas.
Welcome to the PM Collective, a dynamic hub designed to empower business owners, property managers, and BDMs to excel in their careers. Through access to intimate conversations, cutting-edge video training, mental health support, and unparalleled motivation, our community is the ultimate destination for individuals seeking to elevate their professional lives to new heights. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our next conversation on our weekly podcast, The Art of Property Management. Today, I am delighted to have Melissa Vajda from Journee Relocation Agency joining me. And I have found a little blurb on your website, so hopefully this explains the Journee Agency. So Journee Agency is your trusted relocation and destination service provider on the ground in Perth, WA. They assist interstate and international clients who are moving to Perth for either career, study, or simply a lifestyle change. Journee offers full client end-to-end dedication with a personalized, professional, and polished style. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ash. And thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our chat.
So it was, you approached me about coming on the podcast, which was absolutely perfect timing because we have just recently had a podcast with a buyer's agent who did a conversation on how they work with property managers and how both roles can complement each other. And that is exactly what we are doing today with relocation agents. So we, as property managers, have been dealing with relocation agents for a while. I have found that sometimes it's a bit seasonal for my experience, it's a bit seasonal. But I think we're getting to a market where it's going to be very consistent and the relocation agents and the value that they bring is going to be really sought after. So before we get started into our chat, can you please introduce yourself personally, where you've been, where you are now, and all of that?
Sure. So my background has been in corporate and working for some bigger brands like Kitchen Warehouse and Kmart and Bras and Things. And from a personal perspective, beautiful husband, married, and 3 children. And we have moved around a little bit. And hence I do have that understanding of what it's like to relocate house and home and children and schools and work. So we spent about 10 years on the East Coast living in Sydney and Melbourne before deciding to come back to Perth because we love Perth and we love all that WA offers. And this is definitely home for us. And yeah, I think there's such a demand there post-COVID in migration and in people wanting to relocate generally permanently back to WA that opening that agency was a really natural fit for the demand and the next chapter of my career that I wanted to step back into a smaller business again and that client-facing work. And it's so rewarding. I really love it.
And what sort of clients are you seeing at the moment coming over?
Yeah, there's definitely a huge demand. And I don't predict that will slow down anytime soon over the next couple of years. And hence I see property managers every day and they, like us, are, a little stretched and a huge workload and doing long hours. So our client base is predominantly internationals. We do a little bit of domestic movement, but it is mainly internationals. And within that, we've got a large demand and a beautiful word of mouth referral now happening out of the UK. And that's a lot through migration groups because a lot of them will use a migration lawyer or agency to start their visa application process. And then often we get referred out of there, which is really lovely. Most of my clients are coming out, actually it's a bit of a mixture. So some are on the temporary skilled visa scheme and some have got direct PR, permanent residency pathways. And often that will depend on their industry and role, but they're all making the move, wanting to make Perth their home. They're all moving permanently. And they're so brave. Honestly, Ash, they've left their workplaces, they've sold up their homes and assets, they've pulled their kids out of school, they've packed up all their belongings into a move cube and for most of my clients, they're moving here, often not having even visited. They've never set eyes on Perth. So it's massive. It's very life-changing.
What's attracting them to Perth?
Good question. I would say generally it falls into three buckets. The first one can be definitely employment related. So we are doing a lot within the medical and allied health industries. And as we know, our government's doing a massive recruitment drive across a number of sectors, but doctors, anaesthetists, nurses, mental health workers, podiatrists, physios, GPs. So a lot of them are relocating here and working with APRA to get their registrations. The second category would definitely be lifestyle for children, better education opportunities. And with that comes that sort of safety and security, perhaps in an environment and geographic location that they feel then they don't have in their home country.
Yeah, okay. And are you finding that you are working? So my understanding was that a lot of relocation agents work with companies to help them with their staff. Are you finding that your role at the moment, do you seem to go in directly to the family and individual?
Yeah, correct. And there's benefits in both. So there's that, I guess, that B2C channel, so that direct to client channel, and then the B2B channel. And I do a bit of both. I certainly have companies who contact us and employ myself to manage that relocation on behalf of the company. A lot of that's coming out of South Africa for myself, but certainly a lot of clients are reaching out directly where they might be given relocation sum or fee to assist with their relocation, but deciding how they spend that, what kind of support they need, what level of support is at their discretion. So a lot of it is direct contact with the clients.
Yeah. So we had a little chat just off before about how one thing that I think that property managers could do better, and I have to remind myself all the time as well. So this is like a public service announcement to property managers out there listening.
Yep.
That when we get phone calls or emails from people all the time that says, hey, I'm relocating from the UK, or hey, I'm relocating to Australia and I'm looking for this type of property, that this could be a really, really good opportunity to actually help the client by passing them on to someone who specializes in this service. So quite often, and I'll be completely honest, when I get those phone calls or those emails more, I will say to them, no worries, just pop your details into the database and we'll notify you of what comes up, because I personally don't have the time to work one-on-one with someone. Like in some markets, maybe it's been a bit different. And but that's what I do. And I would assume that the majority of property managers would do that. However, I think there's a really great opportunity for us to email back that client and say, how exciting you're moving to Australia. We actually, work alongside Journee Agency, who can actually assist you with everything with your move. Might be worth a call out to them. In the meantime, I'll also add you onto my database. So I think that in this rental market where it's so difficult for the locals, let alone the people coming in from overseas to find a property, that you would be really doing them a massive service by pointing them in the right direction. So what would your thoughts be on that? Yeah,
100%, Ash. I think, and I think you're right. We all have to adapt to the current market conditions that we're in and be flexible with that. But certainly at the moment, with the competitive nature and lack of stock, I wouldn't ever expect a property manager to take that extra problem solving on board. And I think there is a perception there perhaps from people moving to Australia that is a service that property managers can provide or should provide. And so it's kind of changing that perception, but it can be as simple but effective as just having, a name there that you do refer them on to. So you're at least listening to their query and responding to it, but not taking it on board, because property managers in your team, 100% do not have the capacity to take that on board, and just being able to refer them through the pipeline, I guess, and try and put some solutions in front of them. Whether they choose to reach out or not is up to them, but at least you're giving a viable option on the table. So I think that's perfect.
Yeah, and I think there'll be a lot of property managers that don't even respond to those emails. So at least by helping them, it's not going to take long to do. And yeah, you're definitely still being a support. And it sort of reminds me of the work that we do a lot with interstate investors, and how we are probably so busy doing, it's actually a very, very similar service, what you're doing with tenants. And in a way, it feels like a bit of a tenancy advocate, because you're working with that tenant to help them find a property, where us property managers are quite busy at the moment being more investor advocates, and we're helping the interstate investors buy in Perth. And the philosophy of it is actually very much the same, isn't it? And it's a very specialised service with helping investors. And oh my God, it's so time consuming as well working with them. And it really takes up a lot of time and energy. But if you set it up as a separate sort of business, which is what we did, then it works quite well. But this is just more of a reminder that these types of services are all specialised, and they exist for other people who specialise in it. And as a property manager, just stay in your own lane and manage properties. And then, whether it's an interstate investor that needs help purchasing, or whether it's a tenant relocating that needs help relocating, just remember there are other people that can take on that role for you as an extension to your business. Now, we wanted to talk about a really, really good topic with regards to property managers potentially having some really good applications and still going to a home open. So let me actually rephrase that. If yourself, and I'm sure you've been in this position where you have got a client, fantastic, works in the health industry, 2 adults, 2 kids, perfect style, looking at applications. And you put it through to a property manager, and there's a property coming up, but the landlord still wants to go to a home open and doesn't necessarily want to make a decision on this application. And this happens quite a bit. Does this happen to you?
Yes, 100%. It does. And I love talking about this, Ash, because ultimately my objective for Journee is to really support the property managers as well as my clients, of course, but I see my role is completing that trio, and I'll say to property managers, I will smooth the way for the tenant onboarding and also try and make your life easier from a workload perspective. And I do often wonder sometimes when they are presented with a 100% fully vetted, reference checked, fully financial, all IDs provided, work contract in place, proof of savings, and if they've got pets or they've got children, like we fully present the family bio in full transparency. If they are the right fit for that property, I wonder sometimes why the need to still tick the box and go to market, because I know how much workload that brings for the property managers, and they're so stretched and so, speaking on their behalf, but they're so stretched, their hours are long, they're on the road, they're trying to keep up with their emails. And I just think surely there's a smarter way in some instances, not all, but in some instances, of completing this relationship and transaction. So yeah, I do see it, and I wonder why.
Does it happen in certain price points?
Yes, it would be more common in what I'd call that mid-band range of, let's say, $600 to $800 rental per week. Certainly in the higher end, the over thousands and over 1,200-1,500, less happens. But is that the landlords wanting to go to market and really scope every possible applicant out there? And if so, how can the property managers and myself maybe try and influence that owner to see it from a different perspective? Is that a possibility?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sensor Global saves lives with automatic compliance and manages smoke alarms, gas and water leak detection with 24/7 remote management. It provides complete control, reduced risks, and improved compliance for property managers. To find out more, speak to Anthony Booth or head over to sensorglobal.com. Yeah, it's such a good one. It comes up it does come up quite a bit. And I think given this really strong market at the moment, a lot of landlords think that there's an opportunity that there will be offers on their property after a home open. And I won't lie, there tends to be offers on a property. However, as a property manager, that's the column that I don't look at first. I look at the other columns and check everything off. And then if my shortlisted applications, and there is one that's offered more and they are all otherwise identical applications, then yeah, sure, I will, consider that one, or that brings it up a little bit higher. But it has come up to me where I've had owners insist on going to home open, even though I have got an application that's great. And it is pretty frustrating as a property manager when that happens. But I think there's probably opportunities where a property manager could also influence the conversation a little bit better and not just take the owner's recommendation. So I think when I have been a bit frustrated by a landlord who has not taken a perfect application, and like when I mean a perfect one, I think the last situation that this happened, it was a single man who was 50, who was working in a corporate role and had $300,000 in his bank account. And the owner wanted to go to market, and it was like, what the hell would you be looking for if you don't want this person, like
exactly.
It was perfect. And that was very, very frustrating. But she happened just to be a very difficult landlord. However, I think for me, I quite often say to clients, listen, if this is an amazing application, I don't see what other application could be better than this if I went to a home open. Mr. Landlord, I'm finding that 80% of our applications are shit at the moment, which is true. And that if I get a home open, I'm probably only going to get maybe 3 quality applications from this one. It means that your property is going to be vacant for a week while I'm processing applications or doing the viewings and bits and pieces. And you've got a couple of weeks vacancy time before they're even able to move into the property, plus all your advertising fees, etc. So I definitely do use I will reduce your, you won't have an advertising fee if you take this.
Yes.
There have been times where I have actually negotiated on the letting fee at times where I've said, listen, if you accept this application, I will actually have your letting fee as well, just because the workload is so much less. So I have done that in the past as well if I really wanted to get it over the line. But it's a good point. Like we do create a lot of work ourselves. That we too. And there is an agency in Perth who does it well, where they actually get all their applications before viewing, and they don't do viewings like traditional home opens.
Right.
They get the applications for anyone that's interested, they process them, they shortlist them, and then whoever is shortlisted or whoever they decide they're going to go ahead with, they get that approved by the owner pending an inspection.
A viewing, yes.
And then they go through into the viewing. And the reason for that happening is because they actually don't want to put their property managers through the emotional turmoil of being at a big home open with all the desperate crisis stories that emotionally that's draining for property managers. So they're doing it this way. So that's one way for anyone that's listening, that it is a way that people are doing applications, which would be ideal in your situation, because your client gets to put the application in, shortlist, and that's it, and they're trained.
100%. And that's a really good point, Ash, and you've pointed out what I see every day is that some agencies allow pre-applications and some insist you view first and then apply. And I think if your agency, whether it be big or small, can actually review their systems and processes to allow pre-applications, because the ones that are serious and genuine and committed to the process, which obviously we would have those applications in early with all the supporting documents there. And exactly, so really they go to the home open with having a top 3 already set almost, and the property manager has already got an idea of the ideal applicant, and it's just subject to viewing. And I think, not that I'm advocating for completely ridiculous timelines, but I think if you can flip it so that you spend the time on the preparation as opposed to the post viewing, then you'll normally sign a tenant up quicker. It's a more quality tenant, and it's a smoother process. And I think, whilst it is 100% a landlord and owner market for sure, that I certainly see quite often where we might view 2 properties for a client and we've actually been approved on both, but one's process is more efficient, so they come back to us sooner, and normally we always say yes to that first one that we're approved on, and so they end up with a quality tenant and client. And sometimes it can be days or a week later when the other agency finally comes back, and often I'll say to them, I'm surprised that we were approved because I hadn't heard from you. You kind of just have to assume that they've gone elsewhere, and then they miss out. They're actually missing out on a beautiful tenant simply because their processes are getting in the way a bit.
Yeah. Are you seeing that some processes, or are you seeing some delays in application processing? I would probably say that for me in this market, a 48-hour turnaround is probably what you should be aiming for as a property manager, to get back in touch with people to say, yep, you've been accepted. What are you seeing on your end?
Yeah, agreed. So I would say the average or the standard would be 48 hours, maybe 3 days. But I mean, I just had an example yesterday where an agent came back to me after a week. It was a week since the viewing, and said, "Oh, we're still waiting on some information in this particular section." And we had well moved on from that, and it didn't end up being our top property anyway. But I thought, gosh, they're really at a disadvantage after all the hard work that they do. Somewhere in there, they've got to find some better automation or better systems, because I agree, I think the benchmark is definitely 48 hours.
Yeah, I think it's coming down to probably 2 things. One, we've got obviously the online system for applications now, and there's lots of those out there that are being used. And I want to suggest that there's probably a lot of VAs managing the application process.
Yes.
And so it's not getting to the property. So, for example, a VA is very process driven. They potentially won't contact that property manager with their applications till they've all been checked, which is a bit silly because there's always applications that don't get checked. So if your VA is doing this for you and their role is to wait till everything's been processed before giving it to a property manager, that could result in a long delay, and that might not be the best option. I know that I was working with one of my property managers yesterday, and she said, "Oh, Ash, I had a viewing last night and I've got a heap of applications to process." And there were actually some on there that had pets, and there were some that we knew that we weren't going to accept. So what I said to her is, straight up, go through and decline those applications. Let them know straight away. There's no point making them put on for, a few days when we know it's a no. So, and it just tidies it up on our end, and then we're sort of left with the quality ones that we are going to finish processing and check. But I think maybe property managers should be involved in that process a little bit.
Agreed. And you just touched on a good point there, Ash, in terms of, because you use To Apply as your preferred application system, do you? Yeah. And it's interesting, the mix that I still see, and I appreciate that To Apply comes with a cost, and some agencies may feel that that's not justifiable for their level of turnover. But certainly, when we go to Home Opens and we're given, a hard copy REWA form, you kind of think that feels crazy, then everything's
do that.
Yes, they do. You would be surprised. Yes. And so then, so you've got To Apply, and that might be 75, 80%, but then there's still that use the realestate.com website, and then tenant portal, and then you've still got hard copies. And so that's whereas relocation agents, I will always try and adapt to the processes put in front of us because we have to, but To Apply for us, we've got our clients that have all prepped and all ready to go, and they do that before they even leave their home country, so that we can get everything submitted efficiently. All the due diligence is there, everything's declared. So I think, maybe, property managers need to use their voice a bit, and if they feel like the To Apply is what they need to try and look at their in-house systems to bring that on board.
I spoke to another person the other day, and we were talking about how they do their viewings, and I was asking them what they used, and they do it manually. And I
Pen
was
and
like,
paper.
what do you mean you don't have inspect real estate? I said, oh, because I always have a joke and say I would get rid of a staff member before I got rid of IRE. Like that is like a not negotiable thing in our business. And and he was saying that they just do it the old school. They get the phone call, they write them down, they contact them. And I was like, wow, isn't it fascinating how different people work?
It is. And really, it's very varied. And so I think there's definitely opportunities there, for more automation to make everyone's life a bit easier. Because as you said, when they do go to Home Opens, that emotional vested interest that, the property manager or their leasing person who's there, the conversations and the questions and the amount of groups through and the follow-up and the phone calls, and that's for one home open. It's a lot. So if there's a way that I can help cut some of that workload out, that's 100% part of our goal as well.
I want to finish off by also reminding property managers that while we are in a market where we are inundated with tenants and options to rent our property, that is not going to be forever. There is going to be a time again when that changes back, and we are going to have to use some serious networking and marketing skills to find tenants for our properties. So I would encourage everyone to also keep up those networks and relationships with relocation agents, even if you feel like, I can lease my property, no problem. And, I'm just going to say it, the whole, they need me more than I need them.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That is not going to be forever. So
Agreed.
When things change, you need to have relocations on your side, because I remember the markets when I had to call all the relocation agents, say, who do you have coming? I need someone for this house. So now's the time to keep up these relationships with people.
Exactly.
Because
do you remember the times when it used to be, you can have a week's free rent or 2 weeks free rent, it seems crazy now, but they used to happen. And you're right, it'll swing back again.
It will swing back again. That's right. And everyone's going to be knocking on your door saying, where are your clients? So it's, so it's really important to, not be naive to the fact that will come around. Not sure when, but it will come around. Finish up and tell me what you think about the rental market in Perth, and how, do you have any, opinions on the crisis and how long that's going to last for? And it's affecting, obviously it would have to be affecting you quite a bit for the poor families coming over.
Yeah, it does, Ash. And, I follow the articles and the reports and the stats and the core logic really closely. And I get asked all the time by clients, is it really that bad? And I say to them, I'll always answer with fact and experience. And these are the facts, we're at 42-year low, etc. And then, my experience. And for us, through a lot of hard work, we're still 100% successful in placing clients. But now I'll openly say, it's taking us maybe an extra week longer on market than it used to, or we're having to offer more above price than we used to. I think the moral compass in me, I advocate so strongly for my clients, because, they're 99% of them are moving out here for roles and jobs recruited by our government. And I think, this family is the nurse at your local hospital that any of us could be taking our kids to after netball when they've broken their wrist, but without finding them a house, they can't start their roles, and we don't have a nurse in our local hospital. And I don't mean to simplify it like that, but that's the reality of it. And, I'm obviously sympathetic to all that they've gone through, the bravery, the risk to move to the other side of the world. And, they are so grateful to be here. At the end of the day, not only are they quality applicants and tenants, but they are actually really good humans who are integral to our communities and to our local economies, and what they can bring from a diversity and employment and job market. We're lucky to have a lot of these people. So I that human factor for me is pretty big.
No, and that's a really great perspective to put it into, with the people that are coming over with being nurses and in the medical profession. To look at it from that point of view is very, very true. So that's great to hear that perspective. Melissa, it was lovely chatting to you and good to see you. And I hope this podcast was helpful for people listening and not only understanding the importance and the value that relocation agents bring to property managers, but also just a little bit of feedback, I guess, in regards to application processes and those conversations as well. So just making sure that everyone is, working to a good, high, efficient standard. And if you feel like you are taking a little bit too long, with the applications, etc., then a good time to be checking your processes and efficiencies as well. So thank you. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. And if anyone does want to reach out to Melissa, head over to her website. And is that journeeagency.com.au?
Just .com, correct, journeeagency.com.
Perfect. Yeah. And reach out there and she will be more than happy to have a conversation and have a chat as well. And maybe you can, I don't know whether you've got a database or not, but it would be good if someone does think that they have properties that are perfect for clients coming over, a really great contact for property managers to have to touch base with you and to stay in touch with you with what's coming up and work together.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you, Ash, so much for having me. I've loved our chat. Thank you.
The Associates Co. provide reliable, fully trained professionals to assist you with running and scaling your property management department, providing high-quality, pre-trained virtual assistants ready to hit the ground running and revolutionise the way you run your portfolio, ensuring your time is spent doing the high-value tasks inside your rent roll that really matter. Not long ago, VAs within a business were considered a luxury. Now they are a staple for any business needing reliable support without the headache of traditional staffing. To find out more, head over to theassociatesco.com.